The streets of North Carolina's biggest city are on the front line of the battle over trans rights in America. A fight between the city of Charlotte and the state government has drawn a national audience. And people like Lara Americo, who's a transgender woman, find themselves players in a drama not of their choosing.
Transgender people have been around since humans have been around. We've just been hiding, and people still hide today because it's scary to be open like this when there's so many people against you. I don't think it's a culture war. I think it's an emergence of people being free and being more open and authentic.
Here's how we got here. 3 months ago, Charlotte City Council passed a bylaw that not only allowed trans citizens to use the toilet that corresponds with the gender they're living as, but gave stronger protections to LGBT citizens.
Today in Charlotte, you can kick someone out of a restaurant for being gay, not to mention transgender. And I can't live with that. You've got to be able to create the working and living environment in Charlotte that mirrors who we say we are.
But the state legislature, controlled by Republicans, responded with its own law, undoing Charlotte's new protections and declaring that people must use only the bathroom of the gender they're born into.
This law provides no benefit to society, and all it does is harm innocent Americans.
Enter Attorney General Loretta Lynch, herself from North Carolina, who sues the state on behalf of the Obama administration, drawing parallels with the struggle for racial equality.
It was not so very long ago that states, including North Carolina, had other signs above restrooms, water fountains, and on public accommodations, keeping people out based on a distinction without a difference.
And she had this to say to the transgender community.
That we see you, we stand with you, and we will do everything we can to protect you going forward. And please know that history is on your side.
Our government recognizing us was a big step to have somebody, the top dog, look down and say, hey, I see you and I got your back. But in another way that made a lot of people dislike us more. So it's a double-edged sword, I guess.
It makes me feel like I need to appear more biologically feminine so I can blend in better. But even though I'm a transgender woman, I'm okay that there's masculine things about me. So every time I wear a flannel shirt or I walk into a women's bathroom, I see it as a protest against norms that I don't agree with.
On the other side of the argument are the all-American Benham brothers, poster boys of the religious right and twin sons of an evangelical pastor. They live and work just outside of town.
In terms of what Charlotte did with their ordinance, they were forcing private businesses to open up their bathrooms. And it's not the transgenders that we would be concerned about. It's deviant men who would use a bill like that, an ordinance like that, to prey upon women and children. And so that's why we felt like we needed to take a stand.
What evidence is there of that?
But look what's already happening with Target. I mean, we've already got situations happening in Target right now where men not even presenting as women, but just saying, hey, I'm a woman, and they're walking into bathrooms, and there are customers who are so incredibly disheveled by this that they're coming out, and there's nothing that any Target official can do.
This is not love, and they've proven it by opening their bathrooms to perverted men!
There have been protests against the retailer after it changed its bathroom policies to make them more inclusive.
Target does not protect mothers and children. Mothers, get your children out of this store!
But when we asked Target whether there'd been any safety issues because of the policy change, they said there hadn't. Trans activists like Shay Busick say if anyone's at risk, it's trans people themselves.
What that lady was doing was getting people's emotions. They don't know what to expect. They don't know anything about us. They never met a trans person, and then they fight back against us. So that becomes a public safety issue to us. We're the ones that are ending up in the hospital.
Our heart breaks for them, and I want to help them in any way, but unfortunately, a lot of them think that we hate them because we're willing to talk about behavior and ideas and true identity as coming from God. And we won't give in to the, hey, I feel like a woman today, so I'm going to be a woman.
Most people who are transgendered, who I've met anyway and who I've interviewed, would say it's not a behavior. It's not something you slip into and slip out of. It is an identity. And it is an identity that is at the core of who they are.
And I would say if that's true, then I want to see a black man who's turned white, and I want to see a white man who's turned black, because then you can relate the civil rights issue with this issue.
What the Benham brothers are willing to say about transgenderism and homosexuality, based, they say, on their faith, cost them a reality TV show contract.
Every day we do CrossFit WODs, and he and I compete with each other, and I usually beat him.
It was dropped before even going to air after LGBT activists protested against their views. In their latest book, they compare changing gender identity with Jason's 3-year-old daughter wanting to be a horse. Is that a fair way to equate the struggle?
What do you mean by fair?
Transgendered.
What's your standard
I
for
worry
fair?
that it infantilizes the idea, that it minimizes the idea, that it's some kind of childhood fantasy that you should kind of grow out of.
And I would say that I never meant to offend anybody by that, but the logic remains the same. That's child abuse. If I allow her to think that she's still a horse.
So if you met someone who was the parent of a transgendered child and they told you that they were raising their biological daughter as a son, you would regard that as abuse?
Yeah, absolutely.
Child abuse is causing someone to commit suicide because they can't be themselves. I wish so much that being trans was just a phase or just a fantasy, and I can just live a life as my assigned at birth gender, but it never worked, and I tried for many years, and it was detrimental and toxic to everyone who was around me. Only now that I'm authentic, I can finally attempt to live a normal life. And now that I have this liberated identity, now I'm being discriminated against for it. And
you finally found yourself.
Yeah.
In today's North Carolina, the most intimate of life's details plays out in public. Staying hidden is no longer an option. Kylie Morris, Channel 4 News, Charlotte.